and technologies, and employment of medical workers in the positions available in the health centers is another. They are also complaining about delayed salary enhancement as directed by the president. I think that was in 2017 as well as recently in 2021. But the health workers are also complaining about lack of provision of health, of medical, of insurance to the health workers. They are complaining about working conditions that don't allow them to treat their patients well, or the poor working conditions. In 2017, let's remind you, or all of us, and 2021, the president had promised to increase health workers' salaries from 2.5 million to 5 million. That's for the doctors. But the current strike started mostly with the intern doctors. We will be finding out from the medical experts, senior at that we have in the studio here. We also know that there is a request that was made through a supplementary budget. That supplementary budget was recently passed. We need to find out from the minister in this room, who is here with us, also a doctor, how far, what is the progress of that supplementary budget? Where is it? When will it be passed? I mean, released to the doctors. To discuss all this, we have from my extreme left, the Honorable Dr. Chris Baryomunsi. He is the Minister in charge of ICT and National Guidance. Let me emphasize, he is a medical doctor and who has worked as a health worker for a long time. He is an expert in public health. Doctor, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Charles. Good evening, fellow panelists, and good evening, viewers. I'm happy to be here on this show once again.
Thank you very much, and welcome back. Dr. Baryomunsi was in Masindi today for official duty, but we want to thank you for finding time to come here. We have next to him is Dr. Olive Kobusinje. She is a surgeon and injury epidemiologist, and she is a senior research fellow with the School of Public Health at Makerere University, Kampala. Doctor is also an author. Is It the Patient? Is what she authored, a very interesting book that talks about health, medical issues in this country. Doctor, you're most welcome to the show for your maiden appearance.
Thank you very much, and good evening, viewers.
It's good to see you, and the joke we had with the minister is that today seemed to be a Chigezi affair of doctors in the studio, but I will hope that we don't make it Chigezi-like.
It's a doctor's corner.
That is the doctor's corner. Next to, on the right of Dr. Kobusinje, we have Honorable Ojara Mapenduzi. He is MP. He has not yet become a medical doctor. Ojara Mapenduzi is MP in Gulu City, Raibi Bardege constituency to be precise. You're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you, viewers.
Thank you. Finally, we have Council Sarah Birete, who is Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance. Sarah, you're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening, panelists and viewers.
Thank you very much. Let me start with Dr. Kobusinje. With the latest progress that we have, or even to first start by telling us why the doctor strike, and what should be the solution.
Thank you very much, Charles, and once again, good evening, viewers. The doctors' strike, I think the conditions and the genesis of this strike have been explained not just over the recent weeks, but over the years. The grievances are well known. There's been a tendency for people to emphasize the fact that doctors are poorly paid, and so they're agitating for more money. That is true, they're poorly paid and they should get more money. But there actually are other very pertinent issues. For instance, doctors have been talking about lack of workplace safety. During this pandemic, we've lost many health workers, and quite likely part of the problem was the inadequate personal protection for the health workers. They've complained about poor working conditions, working in facilities where quite often they're working without laboratory support, without imaging. A lot of interns, these young doctors that have just qualified, that are trying to get registration, some of them have worked in hospitals and continue to work in hospitals where they've actually not had a CT scan, something that is basic in this day and age. They don't have basic imaging for their patients. Sometimes they work at night and the hospital's laboratories are closed, so they are working without lab support. It's a great deal of responsibility on any doctor, but especially on young doctors that are just trying to get registration, to be looking after patients under those conditions. So inadequate facilities in the hospitals, of course the lack of medicines. Patients come only to get a prescription so they can go out and buy the medicines. You know, it's very terrifying for any doctor, but especially for a young doctor, to realize that a patient is going to die in their hands. And sometimes they're waiting all night for morning so that maybe they can get more assistance, maybe that relatives will go out and buy medicine. It's very distressing. So when doctors talk about these conditions and then everybody says, oh, they're agitating for more money, yes, it would be lovely for them to get paid so that they can live decent lives. You know, we have doctors that can barely afford accommodation. In this current strike, now they're being asked to vacate government premises. But actually, only about 20% of intern doctors are housed in the hospitals where they work. The majority of interns are having to fend for themselves to find accommodation in the community. And with 7,500, I mean, what kind of accommodation do you expect they get? So
750,000. 750,000. Is that taxed? Is that money taxed?
I think this is what they get take home.
Net.
Yes.
Net.
The net after
So
taxes.
when you take off accommodation, transport, meals, I mean, they barely have anything. You know, some of them are eating food that is supposed to be for patients when that is available. This is despicable. So when doctors, and you know, doctors don't strike at the first provocation. They are very patient. They've grown up with these inadequacies, and very many of them actually accept the kind of conditions that should be completely unacceptable. So the strike has not just come as knee-jerk. You know, it's after years of explaining why they cannot work, how they cannot be good doctors in these circumstances. You know, how their patients are suffering at their hands because they don't have what to use to.
You have touched on the interns. First bring us to speed who the interns are and the role they play in our public medical facilities, because I've seen tweets of, you know, colleagues, friends, and people are talking about interns and comparing them to other interns as if there is not a lot that they do. But first, give us a picture of what they actually do.
So the medical intern has completed their 5 years of training in Uganda. We take 5 years of the MBCHB program. They've passed that.
Remember, you're speaking to the ordinary person. So MCBC means what?
So they've finished their medical degree.
Yeah.
They've passed that. But in order for them to get licensed, they actually need to spend a year working while being trained. So they are not working independently. They are not considered to be able to work independently. They're working under supervision. This is intense training. So quite often interns will, you know, they'll spend 2 or 3 days at the workplace. You know, in my time, we spent nights in the hospital if we had accommodation. So even those that don't have accommodation quite often will spend nights in the hospital. So they will sometimes work around the clock. And it means that they're the ones that are going to meet the patients first, talk to the patients, try and make that, figure out what's wrong with the patient, consult with their seniors. They'll be responsible for taking virtually all of the specimens that need to be taken. They'll be checking on the labs. They'll be responsible for ordering tests under supervision. They'll assist their seniors if they are interning. So they will rotate in most of the major disciplines, so that once they finish that year of intense hands-on training, an apprenticeship really, then they are able to work independently. So they are right there on the front line. They are seeing patients, treating patients, participating in operating on those patients. We expect they're going to be able to operate on patients independently once they finish, which means that during this period, they're actually also performing operations. When interns are not on a ward, there's going to be a huge gap, because they are the ones that are doing all of what we would call the donkey work, the work on the floor of seeing patients.
So some people are asking, why should they be paid? They're interns on internship.
Well, so it's puzzling for me when people say that, because even while you're training, you're still working, you're still delivering a service. It's not like you're not delivering any service. So you can't say this person shouldn't be paid. They should do this work absolutely free. So for starters, even if you didn't want to pay them, they have to exist, they have to live, they have to sleep somewhere, they have to be dressed, they have to eat something. So they need living expenses. This is not something you can wish away and say, oh, we won't pay them, so we actually don't need to give them any money. So the money they're getting right now is insufficient just for living expenses. So how do they better come to work, fed, clothed, having had a good sleep, hopefully?
So these about 20% that you talked about that have been asked to vacate the premises of government, what now happens? Have they left, all of them?
To my knowledge, none have left, but I think the pressure is on for them to leave. And
had you failed totally to even negotiate for them to stay?
So today was the day that the Uganda Medical Association, because it's the professional association that that is the umbrella for all the doctors, had thought maybe having tried all other avenues and having been unsuccessful, they would, sort of a last-ditch effort, go to the Speaker of Parliament. And I think we all saw what happened. They were accosted, they were assaulted, they were walking in neat file, in just three of them, in neat, an orderly way to go to Parliament, and that even that they weren't allowed to do. So as far as I'm aware, they were locked up, they were, thrown on pickup trucks, they were, carted off to CPS. They spent several hours in police custody, and then they were released in the evening. So that doesn't sound like somebody that's, that's about to be allowed to negotiate.
Okay.
That's somebody that's clearly being told there's no negotiation.
Okay, Dr. Baramunsi, the president. Okay, first of all, Doctor, start by responding to some of the issues that have been raised by your colleague, Dr. Kobusinje. Why has negotiation failed up to now, including that involved the head of state, following his promises that he had made to better their welfare?
Well, thank you very much, Charles. The struggle for better pay and improvement of the environment in the healthcare services actually has been on since 1995. To the best of my knowledge, 95, 96, where there has been engagement between the health workers, initially under the Uganda Medical Workers Union, then intermittently with the Uganda Medical Association, engaging the government, and it has been on. And progressively, I think things have been improving. Although it's true that more needs to be done to improve the health sector in line of the issues which are being raised. But of course, the question is the resource envelope available in the country. But even the pay for health workers has been gradually over time improving. Now, fast forward the recent events, that you have heard the president saying scientists need to be paid better, with or without these strikes by health workers. And the cabinet had already sat and taken a decision to improve the pay of scientists, where we announced that the entry level for a scientist shall be 4 million shillings, and for medical officers, medical doctors, 5 million shillings. But that will start 1st July 2022. And I remember, as a government spokesperson, I communicated it to the public at the media center before these strikes even came up. And also the same decision was that the intern doctors be paid half of that, which is 2.5 million Uganda shillings. And the president actually directed in a letter which he wrote, I think, in August, that for the interns, the payment should begin 1st July 2021, this year. And that's why in the supplementary budget raised by Ministry of Finance, the money for interns was included in that supplementary, which was passed by both Cabinet and Parliament, and the Ministry of Finance is now processing the money to be paid. You recall that when the doctors announced the strike, His Excellency the President phoned the president, now the president with a small p, the president of UMA, Uganda Medical Association, and he called the executive of Uganda Medical Association for an engagement. The president himself, he initiated the calling, and there was engagement where the president, among other things, told them government has already taken a decision on the pay for doctors, but they need to be patient, that the payment shall start next financial year, because we have put it in the budget. And for the interns, money will be paid starting 1st July. And to the best of my knowledge, they agreed with the president, even took photos and came back. The initial announcement was the strike is going to be called off. Then I think others disagreed, no, the strike should continue and so forth. So, on the demands and requests by health workers, they are legitimate in our view, that we need to put more money to improve the services. But as to whether the answer to those requests is through these demonstrations and strikes, maybe we may have different answers. And also, for government having communicated that we are henceforth going to increase salaries of doctors, but be patient, we shall start next financial year. 5 million is the lowest, and then correspondingly, the amounts go upwards. And also for the interns, the money is in the pipeline because the supplementary has been passed. So now we do not understand why the strike is still on. Is it that the amount is still small? Is it that you don't trust the system, that the government is lying? That's what the doctors are not clearly saying. Like the interns in this case, they can check and satisfy themselves that the money is in the pipeline. And this is what made the Ministry of Health communicate. Say, but you people, your requests are genuine, are legitimate, and as government, we acknowledge them. That's why we have already taken decisions, including for interns, raising the money as per the President's directive. The supplementary has been passed. What we await is finance, because the government, the way it works, we don't keep money in a sack. That when the President says pay them 2.5, that you pull money from a sack. Or when Parliament passes supplementary, that the following day money will fall on the account. There are processes within the government procedures. So now, like the interns were saying, what exactly now do you want the government to do? We have put the money, it is coming. So do you want us to go to church and repent because we put the money. So they should clearly tell the public what is the problem. Is it it is inadequate? Is it?
Why they are not accepting those availed opportunities from government, as your colleague says? Do you have an idea?
So there are a number of problems with what Honorable Badimus is saying. He's suddenly narrowed everything down to money. As we said at the beginning, it's not the only request they have. Money is an important request, it's an important demand. But they've talked about working conditions. The Ministry of Health hasn't come out to say exactly what they've done to improve those working conditions. They haven't. Every time they say, there's money coming. Money wasn't the only problem.
But we can, okay, can we separate the issues and perhaps even prioritize them? Because we know there could be a trigger. The trigger could be, okay, the issues include, like we enumerated, poor working condition, the payment, which is very low, lack of proper PPEs, the personal protective equipment, among others. So what...
Compensation for the doctors who died at the front line.
That's also one of them.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. So what is the trigger leading to the current crisis or mess? And can we start going backwards and saying, this one has been ticked? Can it allow you to go back and work, at least in emergency situations?
You know, they say if somebody lies to you once, shame on them. If somebody lies to you successfully 3 times, shame on you. So Honorable Badimus has told us that this, you know, the struggle for better pay and maybe the strikes.
Over 20 years.
Over 20 years. But more recently, since 2017, there have been promises of next financial year, this money is going to be in the budget. Next financial year, this is 5 years later. So when you say that, now what is the problem? Indeed, okay. What is the problem?
So you don't trust government? You think it is lying?
We've known situations where it was decided that at the height of the pandemic, that we are going to give members of parliament 20 million shillings, never mind what is going to happen. And within, I mean, we blinked and the money was on their accounts. Like, it just happened amazingly fast. This wasn't life-saving. They weren't going to go in. I mean, it was stay home, stay safe. They were going to sit home and chew their money. That money was processed in a flash.
So, Dr. Badimus, you have your answer. You are not trusted as government, that you have overlied. You said 20 years plus, and doctor is saying that, and then she is bringing in something that we shall discuss maybe in the course of the discussion, looking at what priorities we have as a government, because if there is a comparison, and that is the danger that, you know, how we plan leads into, that she is now comparing and saying when MPs demand for some money, it is delivered there and then, politics, but when doctors demand, it is said next year.
It's in process.
How are you going to resolve that, Dr. Chris?
But first of all, I told you that the struggle for improvement of the conditions has been on, but also progressively things have been improving. That's why, for instance, there was a lunch allowance put there, it never used to be there, and many other things. And also, I am a health worker myself. I know we can talk about the environment, those are general issues, but central to this is welfare in terms of pay, whether you want to sugarcoat it with other things, but it's central. And when you mention things like PPEs, I know at the height of the second wave of COVID, there was a crisis in health facilities because of what God saw. But we also know that the situation has since improved. We know, for instance, that the supplementary which we passed, a significant amount of money is also for PPEs, for oxygen, for so on. So also the doctors should also study what has been done. If a supplementary has been passed and there are billions of money to address the PPEs, so why do you go on the street? Why wouldn't you go to Ministry of Health and say, and pack this supplementary, what is there, and where are the gaps? So that's what I'm saying. Yes, you can make your point, but I'm not very sure whether demonstrating on the streets will necessarily address those issues. You see, like the current leadership of the Uganda Medical Association, they were elected today. Before even they got known the Ministry of Health, the following day they announced the strike. Why wouldn't you bother, as a new leadership of the Doctor Association, go to finance, go to Ministry of Health, what is there in for us? So, at times we think that also there is playing to the gallery, there is more of politics. What would be wrong with the new leadership of the doctors sitting with the Minister of Health and say, we are new leadership of the doctors, you are doing a budget, what is in there for? So before you even understand what is there, you are demonstrating.
Okay.
So we think there should be better ways of engagement, because government is addressing some of these concerns, but some people don't want to listen to that.
Okay.
Yes.
Honorable Mapinduzi, as an MP, these doctors today were coming to Parliament, and then they were intercepted and arrested and, treated the way they were treated. What do you make of this in light of the strike going on? How do we resolve this matter?
You know, Charles, it's unfortunate that the doctors were treated that way today. I think that's not being solution-oriented, because treating them shabbily is not providing any solution. I think government should begin to look at different ways of dealing with such a situation. This is not the first time we're having this kind of industrial action. And to me, if you ask why the doctors are doing this and the interns, it is partly because we have allowed a culture to be developed. A culture where people do not believe in what those in position of responsibility say. A culture where someone does not even believe in what Dr. Chris says, because they think it's a lie. And the moment we allow such a culture to develop, then we begin to see this kind of unrest, which has very severe impact on innocent citizens, people who should get services. And I think Dr. Chris, whom I respect very much, should know that it's not just only the medical workers, it's across board. And I will tell you, when Parliament decided that a task force, a COVID task force, be established,
you were part of it.
Odongotho was part of that. And we traversed the country. We visited almost every health facility in this country, whether it's health center 2, 3, 4, or hospitals. We went round. And what these doctors are talking about is a reality. And when we came back, we gave a report to Parliament. And I want to appreciate that Dr. Chris and the rest of the cabinet members saw how important that report was. We gave very factual information, pointing out the situation on the ground. And indeed, we expressed great concern, especially in as far as the welfare of the medical workers are concerned. These guys are going through hell, and we cannot run away from that. We should be honest to ourselves and to this country and address those issues. And then when it comes to the interns, these intern doctors, I have heard statements, and then sometimes people in government, like ministers and directors and so on. I think humility is very important. Sometimes we throw statements arrogantly, without realizing that we hold responsibilities, and so we should, even when things are tough, we should be able to still soberly understand what exactly is going on and how we can address it. Sometimes how we respond to matters, make situations out of hand. And so I have read, I have heard, I have followed even on different media platforms how some government officials react to this, and I think that's not the best way to attend to matters. So there should be improvement.
You're talking about the police arrests or
No, the police arrests. I'm not sure whether, well, of course you are busy, so sometimes you don't follow a lot of these utterances. Some of them say, well, let them go if they leave work, and that's not solving problem. When people come and begin to say, look, there is a problem here, and irrespective of how they are trying to express it, listen and try to deal with it. You know, these intern doctors are very important. Yes, these are people who finish school. They are going through the mandatory professional development, so they can be registered, which is a requirement. And so I have heard some people say, but are they entitled to this? And that's not the issue. We need to look at how much contribution they are making to the health sector. They are making huge contribution, partly because as a country we have not been able to provide what is needed, including recruiting, including dealing with the aspect of staffing. When you go to these health facilities, look at the staffing level, it's not good. And so when we went around the country, the things that Dr. Olive is talking about, they're the same thing we presented to Parliament, we recommended. They're the same thing Parliament has talked about. And so looks like we turn a lot of the things into songs. Now we are talking about the supplementary budget that Parliament approved recently. But before even that supplementary budget, during the second wave, Parliament approved a supplementary to deal with the second wave of the COVID. We provided money as Parliament. And I remember when we invited the Minister of Health before the task force, one of the things we asked was that, why are the medical workers not being paid even when money is available? You get the same story. Even as I talk right now, from the time we provided as a supplementary, monies that should have been paid during even wave, COVID wave 1. So do we need to make these medical workers be kneel down and crawl so we know they're in a terrible situation? I think that's where we need to get serious. Well, it's accumulating. They have been paid partly and not paid partly, so everything keeps on accumulating. It's just because sometimes we are very insensitive to some of these issues. Now,
okay.
Finally, just why we need to have some level of tolerance as we attend to some of these matters. Yes, I know that sometimes even the people who want to be heard, sometimes they go beyond the limit. And I think it's important to also exercise some level of restraints, like Dr. Olive, who is here and representing the bigger group. I think much as all of us believe that the medical workers need to be treated with that respect and dignity, it's important that you still hold the kind of belief and the kind of, like Dr. Chris put it. I like recently the president said, is it general practitioners should be paid 5 million? Yes, the doctors, 5 million, and came on with his breakdown. That is good. And if the money is to be, if that payment is to begin 1st of July 2022, which is next financial year, what then happened? Because if that is the commitment, then right now there should be signs that ministries are doing everything to make sure that works. But the moment the medical people do not see those signs, and because they know every time you have to mount pressure, then that has become the language. So I think from the side of the medical practitioners as well, there should be room for dialogue. I do not know whether the interns, before they started going on And I'm very, very passionate about the interns because I know how much role they play. We have a serious staffing gap, and so they come in to bridge that gap.
Okay. Sarah, your take of what's going on and what do you think are the implications of this?
Charles, I had a patient in Mulago in 2012. It was my first time. I don't know whether I would wish to go back. It was my first time in Mulago. I was traumatized for quite a long time. I think we need to be sincere as a country. If we say this is a national referral hospital, does it meet the standards of a national referral hospital? Everything you get in Mulago, you sweat, you walk, you pay, including simple medical supplies. You pay. Many of the people that go to Mulago are the vulnerable poor. People travel from districts, far districts. Some people don't even afford caretakers. You need a heart made of stone to be in Mulago and be able to smile. I was very traumatized. So when doctors say their main concern is not just pay, they even need medical supplies to use. I have seen that as a Ugandan. I have seen that. So what do we need? Health center, 3, 4, where people are accessing health care. I think this is what the strike, this is the argument medics are raising. It's not just their welfare, but if they get back to work, what are they using? We saw the vulnerability during COVID where they lost their colleagues for preventable causes. Many of the health workers that died were in the outpatients, where you could not tell whether somebody has COVID or not. You are admitting them, maybe they are going to do tests, and in the process, because you don't have protective gear, you get COVID, and they lost their colleagues. One of the issues they are raising is that the families of these doctors are living in dehumanizing conditions. Some of the families have been chased from government houses, and they don't have where to go. Some of their colleagues sustained long, disabilities out of COVID, and they are unable to work, and they have no money. They can't even access health care. So are these really issues we should push under the table and say, please, you have nothing to talk about? Can we have a tour of ministers in Mulago? And they see for themselves what the doctors are talking about. Maybe with the media. And say, no, you are telling lies, everything is okay. If they think it is okay. That's also direct comparison on the pay if it's about money. And there's nothing wrong with advocating for equitable pay. There's nothing wrong. We have people, the colleagues of Mapenduzi, I don't know, I think you earn averagely 30, 40 million? No. How much do you earn?
Well,
no, with allowances. Okay, we will compare because we normally compare with MPs. And it's not personal. It's not personal. This is taxpayers' money. This is public money. So you have members of parliament earning hefty salaries.
Members of parliament earn 11 million shillings.
No, I am saying a package. That's a salary. Okay.
Then they are paid some allowance depending on where you come from, some mileage.
Mileage.
So somebody from Kampala will get less than Mapenduzi who comes from Uguru.
Okay, but average, how much is it? On average?
Our salary is 11 million.
I know, I'm talking of a package, plus mileage.
Well, the mileage doctor is talking about is your fuel.
I know it.
For example, I'm expected
I'm not asking.
Well, I'm telling you this. I'm saying I'm expected to be in Gulu monthly at least 4 times.
I know that. Exactly. I'm saying on average per month. What do you
It will range from 15 to 25, thereabout.
Thank you. Thank you.
Depending on
That's what
The
I
person
want.
from the
I
first
know
point,
what
yeah.
it's for. I have seen these breakdowns over
How
there.
much do you earn from civil society?
My salary is 5 million.
And
I pay
allowances,
NSSF, I pay your
and
rights, you
allowances.
can verify.
you will earn better than MPs actually. Even if you went down to see the kind of vehicles we have parked, yours is much more.
Okay, but I take that as no, it's
A
okay.
compliment. That's a
Yes, it's
compliment.
okay. And I thank
Why
you.
I'm saying this,
I
the
like
civil
people
society
who wish
actors,
me well.
they blame us as MPs when they actually drive the Porsche vehicles which are much more.
No, I have not even talked about your
Yeah.
car allowance.
Eh,
But I am making an argument that these are people serving Ugandans the way MPs serve Ugandans. So my argument is
Sarah,
unbeatable.
doctor wanted to give you some information.
Yes.
Doctor.
I was just going to say that your comment and Honorable Mapinduzi's response go to the very core of this problem, is that there's supposed to be a salary review commission.
Yes.
But it seems like now the remuneration of doctors or any other person is now at the whim of the president. The president can now decide you earn 5 million, the other person earns 2.5 million, and the other person, where do these figures come from? They come out of the air. There's supposed to be a methodical way of determining what somebody puts in and what they should get out. Whether they are members of parliament, whether they are doctors working in government hospitals, whether they are, But as we speak, it seems like a crisis develops, then people go to State House, the president comes up with a figure, and that's what we go with. What happened to the Salary Review Commission? Why can't we have some a more methodical way of determining remuneration of public servants? Then there won't be a question of, what do the MPs get? Are they getting too much? And are the doctors not getting enough? And what about the teachers? And what about this category of such and such? This is a problem. And I think as long as we treat it as an ad hoc thing, that we go to State House, we negotiate, we strike, we agitate, and maybe we'll squeeze a little more out of the president. How can that be? I mean, what powers does the president have to be able to figure out who should earn what?
Is the CEO?
No. Okay, but if I may conclude my point,
Yes,
and I was
conclude.
talking about remuneration.
I except that I sympathize with you when you take a bullet to ask MPs from opposition or government or independent how much they earn.
And I know.
That is the point at which they most unite.
But it is a public
in
so we can access the
hiding,
person.
I disagree with that.
We can get to the
let
person.
me be
so
honest
no,
with
there
you.
is
But we have told you. Actually, if you want me to split it, the actual salary of an MP is 2.6 million. But we're getting what we call subsistence allowance, which we now added to that basic salary for purposes of taxation. That's how it came to 11 million, 11.2 million, which is taxed, pay as you earn.
When it is taxed, you get about 6 points.
6 point something.
But have you seen?
And then the others are there.
And I know.
And then the others are the allowances.
Let's look into that microphone, into that camera.
Well, we are here.
The reason MPs decided to put their money at that 11.
Was avoid taxes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Was what?
But let's see.
What you say?
Avoid taxes.
Let me
no.
conclude my point.
No, I was a parliamentary commissioner, so I speak with authority on those
On
issues.
that
And I know you
Yes.
did very well.
Yes, so don't mislead the public. The reason why we
He's still
imagined
doing very well.
subsistence and the basic salary was actually to enhance
You
the
still get the housing
taxation.
allowance.
No.
You do still
Where-
get
where do you
housing
get
They
allowance.
get what we call town running allowance.
Yes.
They get fuel.
Mileage for their constituents.
Then they get constituency.
Of course, then at the end of the year they get medical.
And then they get medical. Now, the truth of the
At
matter
the end of the
is,
term they get
what
medical.
you will
We
never
even buy
get,
them cars.
what you
Yes.
will never get,
I'm actually
Sarah,
hearing some of those things from you.
Sarah,
Because I don't know.
Sarah, what you will never
Actually don't
get
exist.
is the actual slip.
We-
I don't even
We
want
can
to.
access
I
them.
don't even want to mistrust any of
know.
our
You want
guests
to do a
here.
talk show and I
But
bring my payslip?
let's
Yes.
ask a
Yes,
simple
I'll show it
thing.
to you.
An
Yes.
MP to give you their payment
Doctor
slip.
says he has it.
Oh, please.
I
can
consolidated.
You have a show and we shall bring you the payslip.
Okay,
I
I'm
can-
glad
I
we are
It
going
is
to
in
do that.
excess
I
of
can.
30.
Okay.
Can I ask you, Charles?
Yes.
How come the MPs are the ones who are troubled with the deaths and they're even arrested for
Extravagance.
That one is where I sympathize with our MPs
Extravagance.
because they have become
Extravagance and the
people
burden
put-
of the constituents.
People put a lot of burden on
Because
them
of
from the
poor service
constituency.
delivery.
You
You
know,
are doing the service delivery.
You have to go for
instead
a
of
funeral.
government.
You
What?
have to go for another party the next day. You have to pay school fees for many of the constituents. You have to pay for
Medical.
medication. You have to bury people. So much, you know,
And build roads sometimes.
yes,
build roads.
build bridges.
Service delivery.
The burden on MPs now is too much. That I sympathize with you on. But if we are to be honest, I know an average MP of Kampala, which is the least paid, gets not less than 30 million. And I challenge any MP to give me a slip of their pay. Nothing else. Let's not discuss.
You are
Give
wrong.
me a slip.
Okay.
I challenge
They
you.
have said they are
I
going to
challenge that you
produce.
are
Let's
wrong.
wait for the
I would
sleep.
request that maybe next time you find an opportunity, we sit and talk about that.
I sympathize with
come
the,
with
by the way, I
We
sympathize
can
with
have
the
a
Okay,
MP.
but
discussion.
let
I
me.
sympathize with the burden of an MP, that is for sure. I do. I know I have seen a slip of an MP where an MP earned 47,000
Yes, then the
shillings
bank
at the
loan,
end of the
the
month.
whatever.
The rest were deducted. 47,000 shillings. I've seen it from a bank. And that is how bad it is. The rest, burden on them. I sympathize with MPs.
Okay, but let's move on from our
Don't
parliament.
you
Let's
say the public
compare
say they get
with
huge amounts.
the. Okay.
No, that's not correct.
Sarah, make your point.
Doctor, in Uganda, we know, other than the KCCA directors,
Yeah.
it is Parliament that earns a lot of money.
Which
It's
is
those
why-
two institutions, KCCA and Parliament.
Yeah,
In
it's a
Uganda.
do or die.
But let's
You are
discuss
right.
that in
Yes.
context of the medical.
Yes, let me compare with what medics earn in our neighborhood and maybe the rest of Africa. If you look at Kenya, Kenya has now joined the category of South Africa and Namibia to be the top paying countries for their medical personnel. And the pay ranges from $3,000 for South Africa, $3,000, and Namibia, $3,400 for South Africa, Namibia, $3,120.
That's a month.
Yes, that's per month, take home. Uganda's gross is $232, between $232 $631. Rwanda's take home is $474 and a range of $1,702 for the consultants. Tanzania's take home is $626 and also the highest being $805. Kenya, which was at a range of $1,225 and consultants earning $1,435, has improved the pay of doctors to $3,141 being the lowest and $5,161 being the highest. So we are the least.
What are the figures as of when?
This is according to the East African article that was analyzing the current medical strike in Uganda.
This is last year.
Yes. The ongoing medical strike.
I
It's
mean,
this
those
year.
figures as
Yes.
of when?
These figures are the current paying
If they are old,
rates.
it means that today they earn even more.
Yeah, or they could be more. But let's take them as the last year's figures. So if you compare with the region, we are still the least paying country for our medical personnel. Yet we are not the poorest, even in the
And
region.
I wish we get time and then take the research more.
Yeah.
I'm ready to join you, Sarah,
Yes.
and to compare that we are the worst in the region in paying doctors, but in paying our politicians, we are only after Kenya. It is only Kenya better than us. We pay our politicians better than Rwanda, better than Tanzania, better than Burundi.
Yes. So if you compare really,
you
can
sure?
we even be at East Africa?
And South Sudan?
I think,
That's the
I think
most
I
country in the
don't
world.
want- You are a minister, so
They take it than
you
Uganda.
are a minister,
They take it
but,
than
and you
Uganda.
cannot say that because of diplomatic issues. But for me, I can say I don't want to compare my country with South
You know-
Sudan.
you know
South Sudan
Ugandans-
became a country
A few years
a few
ago.
years ago. For us, we are
You know,
50
it's a
years
very-
plus.
Ugandan doctors not only earn, so little. When they need medical care, they can't afford it.
Yes. We
They
saw
have
the
no
doctor in
insurance.
Mbarara who died.
Yes, they have
Who
no
was bounced
insurance.
in private hospitals and died on the corridors. With
So,
COVID.
I mean, how?
And he was the head of COVID unit in Mbarara. Very unfortunate. You don't even, how can, I don't know what it is.
Okay.
So these doctors in
The
their
level of
countries
abuse that
have
Uganda-
medical insurance, have other benefits for their children, can't we do more as a country?
and
Can't
Let
we?
me bring back Dr. Chris. Looking at these comparisons, and let me admit, I hate to have those comparisons because I think that the rationale that takes us into those perhaps differ at a certain time or according to circumstances. But the fundamental point therefore is, what do we have to do to go beyond where we are now, solve the problem, get the medical doctors back to the hospital, and ensure that what the promise that the president has made is listened to? How are you going to do that from tomorrow?
Well, first of all, like I said, the situation, the issues of improving the conditions, issues of welfare are issues which we appreciate. I think all of us are in agreement that we need to improve the welfare of health workers, we need to improve the working conditions. And like I said, over time, I think there has been improvement. That is why even decisions have already been taken, like to increase the pay, even before this strike took place. So the goodwill from government is there. But the question I posed earlier on, is striking and industrial action necessarily the route which will deliver what health workers want? Have they exhausted the engagement with the government or not? And for information, by the way, I think the majority of health workers are working. No, I thought that was in Masindi. Past the top people of Hoima have been in Kanungu. The majority of the health workers are working. That's not to say that they don't feel the pressure of welfare issues and these issues. And I can even, without fear of contradiction, say the strike is largely in the center here, because we're in touch with the whole country. But that is also not to minimize the issues which they are raising. So government is committed, and we have said we have already begun addressing a number of the issues which have been put on the table. When the president met the health workers, they discussed all these issues and assurances were made. If it is a question of health workers not trusting the government, then it is their problem, not ours. But the commitment from the side of government is there. And you were saying the pledges have been made before. But yes, the government could have said we shall raise your pay. But we are saying this time around, cabinet sat, considered the matter, took a decision, and the directives given at finance. That's different from making maybe a pronouncement during campaigns. Now we are saying a supplementary was raised, it has money for interns. That's different from just a pledge. So there is a difference between the actions which have been taken now and probably the pledges which were made before. So the doctors also should also have a culture of trusting government. Otherwise you strain the relationship between the government and health workers. And I think most of these issues could even be addressed through constructive engagement, not conflicting with the government. So the goodwill is there, and the government will not renege on the pledges and the promises that have been made. Let's look at the issue of, say, interns. Interns, as Dr. Olive has explained, they are between students and the public servants, because you've completed your university degree and you have passed, but you have to undergo apprenticeship where you build confidence in clinical skills in order for you to be able to practice on your own. So the intern doctors need this training, But because in the process of that training, they are working on patients and doing clinical work, that's why government pays them. But you have to finish the internship to the satisfaction of the supervisors for them to clear you in order for you to be officially registered so that you can work as a doctor, as a graduate nurse, as a pharmacist. But now, the landscape has changed. We have very many universities that are producing these medical officers and pharmacists and nurses and so forth. Public universities and private. What has been obtaining now is that all those who come for internship, government pays them. Like this year, we've been having 2 tranches of interns. I think there are 400 who completed, now we have like 1,000. And within the government, we are now reviewing the policy on internship. And the question is the government going to be able to pay all these interns? Are those graduates from private universities also going to be paid? And so there is a debate within the government, and we have requested the Ministry of Health to bring a policy on interns, and the debate will be focusing, and I see the direction going into, like, maybe government may say for this year we can take up to 800 interns, maybe those from government universities, and those from private universities maybe may pay for themselves to do the internship. So there is that debate which is going on, because when Olive Komsinje completed university, probably it was only Makerere producing doctors. But now we have very many universities, public and private, and many courses.
But
now,
all honorable minister, you know the quality better, the quality issues. Do you trust all the private universities to produce the quality of doctors that you want to serve the patients?
those are the issues now. Actually, National Council for Higher Education has a lot of work to do, because what I see also, I think the planning function needs to be strengthened in terms of guiding universities how many they should admit for first year, for instance. When I was Minister of State for Health, I came across a university, a private university, which had admitted 400 students for first year.
Wow.
While Makerere cannot exceed even 100, because training medical doctors, not like training economists and others, requires a lot of attention. But because a private university, and the question we put to National Council of Higher Education, are you not guiding these universities to regulate the numbers? Because you have to look at quality.
Honorable Minister, that's an important point you're making. We are going to continue with it. We are going to have that discussion. I will also bring in your colleagues, but I will give you some 2 minutes to finalize it after the break. Let's first go for a break right now. This is Behind the Headlines, and don't touch your knob at all. Keep it here on Behind the Headlines. Let's take that break.
Everyone deserves more this festive season, which is why MTN Momo is giving you more Senkyu points on your MTN Momo withdrawals at agent locations. Get 150 Senkyu points for every 1,000 shillings spent in withdrawal fees. More Senkyu points means you get more free minutes, more free MBs, more free SMSs, and more free Momo Pay shopping. To use your Senkyu points, dial *141#. Everywhere you go, MTN. quality rebars with cut and bend surfaces. Roofings, strength of a nation.
Transact and win money after money with Airtel Money. 1.5 billion shillings in cash prizes up for grabs.
Nyonga Marusi Ronald, Ngazwarua, Mitolu Star, Alo Aro Toi, Hash, Mi Daily, Milo Airtime J, Mito Mi MB's data J, then Milo, Choti Milisu in the Banlu Sender Balumi call. Customer can only call meaning the sender.
The more you transact, the higher your chances of winning. Airtel Money, instant, secure, borderless.
Shoppers, we have a variety of items like gift hampers, foods, garments, cosmetics, and all sorts of drinks. Enjoy your shopping experience this festive season at affordable prices in our fully stocked branches in the following areas: in Tinder Station Road, opposite Makere Business School along Port Bell Road, Duster Street opposite Nakasero Market, and Garden City on Yusuf Lule Road. To all our customers and suppliers, we thank you for your continuous support. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Stay safe, wash your hands, sanitize, and wear your mask always.
Transact and win money after money with Airtel Money. 1.5 billion shillings in cash prizes up for grabs. The more you transact, the higher your chances of winning. Airtel Money, instant, secure, borderless.
It's the festive season and we love it. And that means it's time to celebrate with GoTV.
Come with me.
So get your GoCoder and GoTV value for 25,000 shillings to watch with the whole family. And if you're feeling extra festive, upgrade to our best package yet, GoTV Super.
Something to look forward to.
Download the My GoTV app for more information.
Super.
We all deserve a super festive season. And with GoTV, there's every reason to love it.
Welcome back from the break, from the rest, and this is Behind the Headlines. This Wednesday, the 15th of December 2021, and we have the Honorable Dr. Chris Baromusi, Minister for ICT. We have Dr. Olive Kobusinje, who is a lecturer at School of Public Health, Makerere University. We have Honorable Ojara Mapenduzi. We have Council Sarah Birete of the Center for Constitutional Governance. And we are looking at the current ongoing strike by the medics, by the doctors especially, and more especially the interns, the interning doctors. And the latest we know is that today, as the doctors were trying to meet the Speaker of Parliament, they were blocked, and a number of them, I think 33 or 32 about there, were arrested. But what we now know is that they were later released this evening. And the discussions are still going on. I have also got information that the Director General of the Health Services has accepted that the discussions with the doctors should continue to find a lasting solution, which is a very good thing in my view. May we keep that going on so that the matters are not, they don't become completely messy, because the person who suffers most is the ordinary person who is in the hospital and who cannot afford to go out of the public health facility. Before we went for the break, Dr. Chris had gone into touching on the discussion of quality of the doctors or medical workers that we have. Doctor, I want to, Honorable Minister, I want you to finalize on that as part of the solution in terms of what you're thinking from government side, and then we can move to other issues.
That the training of health workers, the landscape has changed with the many universities and training colleges and many disciplines, and therefore as government we are going to, actually the Ministry of Health has already drafted an intern policy which we are going to discuss within cabinet. So I am just bringing it up front that there are many things which they have to change. But also, like my colleague the doctor already said, the interns, for information, they do their work in the regional referral hospitals and the national referral hospitals. They are not in the general hospital because they have to work where they are specialists. And today's events, yes, I saw even interns. The question which we raise is, government has raised the supplementary. The supplementary includes the pay for interns. When interns now are going with Parliament to petition the Speaker, what do they want the Speaker to do? To say we hold the supplementary, or we go to money lenders before the finance has finished processing, or so forth. What exactly do we want Parliament to do? I have seen actually one of the opposition members of Parliament has raised a motion for tomorrow, again about urging the government to pay interns. Since we have put money in the budget, it has been passed by Parliament. So you finance the processing, then you are urging government to pay them. So we are saying, yes, you can struggle, but struggle with tactics and wisdom also. Unless if you are saying the money, the 2.5 is little, that's a different issue. Or if you are saying you don't trust the youth, and that's why the Ministry of Health is saying, if you don't trust the government after has given you assurances, then you either go back, because the interns haven't been dismissed. I think the date of the Ministry of Health was saying, you get to work, your money is coming, and you get the arrears from July. If you do not want, then vacate the accommodation, you prepare new interns who are coming. I think it's also fair enough. Why do you want to push government on the wall and for you not to act like that? So are people saying government should say go on with the strike, we are happy with your strike? Because I say we have addressed some of your demands, especially welfare. Why don't you also be considering and give the benefit of doubt and wait for finance to say this?
Okay, I want to bring in the rest of the members, especially the follow, and then but maybe I will start with the Honorable since he has raised his hand. But let me read a few messages to inform the discussion we are having. Someone called Geoffrey from Bugiri says, Charles, thanks for the show. This is a very important topic. Most of the time, intern doctors work with minimal supervision. So ideally, they offer a service more than just many students. Any person who has been to a government hospital will appreciate their importance. And then he says, the doctors have requested government to put its commitment in writing. Why is government declining? The Prime Minister did put all those commitments in writing. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for that. And then there are a lot of messages, and there are some doctors say, somebody called Francis says, Dr. Chris should inform also that the new leadership of the interns has taken over where the old it is not. There is not that the new team is coming absolutely new ideas, except that they have a long-term plan, not short-term. That is someone called, and then someone called Charles, thanks for this. I am concerned as to why this government has decided to suspend all interns and leave their senior daughters untouched. Yet both of them are on strike. This is unfair. And someone called Dr. Tom has sent a message from DSAs, and he says, Charles, the medical interns are internshipping their first day cannot be compared to other internship during their time. This message is those other interns to be ill-informed. That's what Tom is saying. Let's have this sorted out, and then we shall be reading a number of others that are having many messages that are coming in. They will be sorting them, and honorable raised your hand you wanted to.
Condition under which the medical interns operate. I think for Uganda would say a unique kind of environment. Because one, our health sector is understaffed, and so the burden attending to the interns have a lot more work to do compared to what we should do. Secondly, the kind of the condition. When the medical workers to say we are protective insurance, it's about their safety, it's about their lives. I know the currently 907 gross. 907.
They take home 750,000 shillings
after tax.
But they work full time.
But then realistically, as we saw that what about the operating? In fact, they end up spending money on buying the things that should buy themselves, that should keep themselves in the hospital. So even when we are talking about the segment of it's going towards buying admission supplies. So it's important. Then I think just as Dr. Chris pointed out, I think realistically it would be unsustainable for government. In an event that there are more universities and we have thousands and less than people. But how do we address that? If we want to provide solutions, let's make sure we recruit staff. We recruit more staff so that we move from, because right now we have about 60% staff in that. And when you look at the higher level, like in Guru, we should be having about 14 consultants. We have only one. We should be having 4 senior consultants. We have none. And there are many positions that have. So if government wants to address this, then we need to. Uganda is producing about 5 million doctors here. So we don't allow the people to recruit. Then why are we not recruiting?
Can I give information? Among the decisions which we also communicated, we are going to recruit all the doctors who are willing to work with the government, and we are even changing the structure, providing for doctors at health center 3, sub-county level, starting in this financial year. We have already communicated that the advert will come out, and then all the doctors who are not on government and who are willing to work with government
That's a positive development, and I'm thankful for that. But again, we also need to look at the aspect of creating some level of uniformity. When you look at consultants in government facilities, like the regional hospital, the consultants are paid alongside leadership. Then the same caliber of people in universities are paid about 10 years. A senior consultant in a government facility is paid about 7 million shillings. When he's employed by a university like Makere, he's paid 15 million shillings. And so that level of disparity is not good. I think, just like Dr. Olda put it, we need to build a system where we fairly determine how much people should be paid. That's exactly depending on qualifications and experience. But I also think, because politicians are going to continue having the brunt of, like you just asked this question, how much are you paid? And I think it should not be about how much Charles or Sarah is paid. It should be about what kind of standard, what kind of environment do we create for every citizen who plays a role in providing services. So we can address
in line with their qualifications.
Exactly, and experience. That's right. Exactly, and experience. So for me, Charles, I think the most important thing at this point is yes, the doctors have spoken. They have expressed how they feel. Going forward, I don't think we should continue to have this kind of environment where we only begin to take actions when we have industrial action and people. I think it's not healthy. Secondly, the doctors and the interns, now that there is commitment, like Dr. Chris is putting, I think, Dr. Oli, you need to get back to work.
How about the supply?
That's a good challenge.
Yeah.
Dr. Olive.
Yeah.
With the new developments coming up from Honorable Chris, and also information coming out from the Director General of Health Services, are you ready to guide the interns, the other doctors, to say, for the sake of the Hippocratic oath, that you swear as medical doctors to think more about life? Yes, we understand your plight and we support you on it. It's a genuine struggle, but that if there is a promise made, can you take that and say, let's take it and for the sake of lives?
A disclaimer. I am not here to represent the interns. I am not here to. I'm not here to. I'm certainly not.
But the struggle is common.
And
it's a good struggle.
Yeah.
Just relate with that struggle. It's a good struggle.
Yes, absolutely. I fully identify with the struggle. So I have here a document. It's a Ministry of Health document, March 2021. It's the Human Resources for Health Strategic Plan 2020 to 2030.
Yeah.
So this is the plan that is supposed to guide the sector in the development of the human resources.
Yeah.
And so taking from what Honorable Mapinduzi said about the staffing levels, so this is using data from 2020 where only 30% of the positions for specialist doctors were filled, and then the general doctors were doing better, so 73% are filled, but all said 69% of the positions are filled. So we still have a huge gap to fill.
31.
Which then surprises one to see that the very same sector, the leadership of the sector, will say, we don't care if you don't finish your training, if you don't register, we don't lose anything. We have goals. We have set goals. We say, Honorable Baryomusi says they want to employ every employable doctor, every doctor that wants to work with government. In fact, according to this document, there are lots of doctors that are on the books according to the council, but they are not in positions, they are not employed.
True.
Now, the current employment staffing level, as I said, is 69%, between 69% and 74%. But with a very high absenteeism rate. And in fact, the very same, the document from the Ministry of Health itself summarizes that the average staffing level of 51% of 74%. It means that at any one time, only probably about 38% of those positions have people in them. That's how low the staffing levels are.
And can you tell us, because when I heard about DAS, someone within the health sector told me that figure of about 69 actually includes those who are in administration and don't go to the hospital. It includes those who are working with projects and don't see patients. And the biggest problem we have, the biggest gap, is actually the doctor-patient ratio. Is that so?
Well, so while that is the case, so they also have this absenteeism, and part of this you already hinted on is that people are online seeing people are in this hospital, but they're also in two other clinics. And part of the reason, it's not necessarily the only reason, but it's because they're paying too little. They have kids, they have families, they need to feed their children, they need to send them to school, and you pay them so little. Eventually, they don't get money. They have one skill, they are doctors and nurses and pharmacists. They don't sell their skill to whoever is going to pay. So until you pay them, you have no more authority to tell them to not work. So you can't expect this.
Dr. Baramuzi, I think that's a very fundamental point that Kobusindi makes. Because right now we have a small envelope, national envelope, but I think progressively as we go forward, as a government, you need to think critically about the planning for these doctors, because we expect them to touch us when we need them. You people, actually, you as well. You're giving them 750,000 shillings. You expect them to go to the same market. You expect them to eat well. You expect them to also stay well, maybe drive. You expect them to go to the same supermarket. Many of them who have children, their children should go to the same supermarket. The schools are charging S1, it is in S1, it is 1.5 million. S1 that we are paying them 750,000. Honorable Minister, you need to help the country as government.
Even as the government, more so some of us workers, his workers appreciate that they appreciate that the pay has been low, that's why you formed the decisions to just come to government for payment. Blessing, we should really have accepted them. But also for information, we are having a discussion within the government. Once we effect payment, the employer to discuss the social employment. You employer the one online where someone also I think if you are doing work under the following terms and conditions in terms of so we are discussing now is much better than what the usual condition whether work for government or private. But I will also support the decision on the table is being discussed when the settlement.
Honorable Minister, yesterday, someone who was saying that his doctors were striking, and the person was saying his solution was working for places, and run here, get 500,000 and run in 2 hours, run 2 hours, run 1 place, get after 2 hours, after 2 hours. Just imagine the quality care, that care, the things that he is
There was an intern strike in 1998. If I recall, of our doctors.
Someone called Isaac has said, Charles, thanks for the program. However, as we all feel for the geography, are they going and willing and work for and only for the government once their pay is enhanced? Since they are trained on taxpayers' taxes, shouldn't they also be vetted for some years before they move on? Dr. Kobuzide, you may need to respond to me as you and other issues.
Right, so that is a pertinent question, and to be fair, even those medical students that are so-called self-sponsored, self-sponsored, there's still a level of subsidy. Training doctors is hugely expensive. So all doctors, whether they are being paid for medical schools by government or their parents, there's a level of subsidy. So they do owe the country something, which is what makes it shocking that the Ministry of Health would say, after investing 5.5, close to 6 years in these young people, that they actually willing to make money without registration. I mean, it's irresponsible. But I was just going to follow up what Sarah said. They do want to work and they put their conditions. So Sarah was talking about that idea. Wait, so the idea that they don't have what to do. Yeah. So the idea that the resource envelope is too small, the resource envelope is too small. You know, we see where the money goes. Some of it is in the public domain. I'll give you an example. On the second, I have a letter here from the Minister of Finance written to our Auditor General on the 2nd of September 2021. So 2 months after the new budget was passed. This is about a supplementary budget. And this budget is benefiting five main units. The first one is the Office of the President, where we are spending 1.6 billion to pay Munyenyo for hosting visitors that came for the swearing in of the president. Then we're spending 3.2 billion to pay salaries for presidential advisors, and then 8.3 billion to buy vehicles for senior presidential advisors. We are paying, this is a high sum, we are paying 500 million shillings to buy a junior minister a vehicle. I mean, the people who sell these cars must laugh at us. Like, look at this country. It doesn't pay doctors, but it's buying one civil servant a vehicle that costs 500 million. I mean, doctors are not stupid. They look at this kind of thing, and then you tell them you can't afford to pay them better. They don't have medical insurance. They can't afford care when they are sick. They can't afford accommodation. They can't. And one individual, we pay 500 million to buy them a car. We pay, I mean, really, this is ridiculous. And then their state house, I mean, we give them 55 billion to work on a vaccine. Okay, maybe there's no arguing there. So we have, I mean, this is supplementary coming in 2 months after the main budget was passed. Where is the good news that Dr. Bayonis is talking about? I'll give you another example. This is from 2020 at the height of the pandemic. We have a supplementary Schedule 1 that again comes in. This is an emergency. We must buy these things. You know, Honorable Mapendusi is looking at this. This is the money that you pass. And so we have, so that the main budget was 45 trillion.
Yes.
And there is a legal limit of 3%. So a supplementary budget can't come and it is more than 3% of the main budget.
Yeah.
So that was, the limit was 1.36 trillion.
The executive can spend up to 3% without approval.
Without, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then
within
we need
4
to
months,
come to Parliament.
within 4
Exactly.
months you come and report.
Right. So this is exactly what they
Thank
were
you,
doing.
Honorable Minister.
There was, yeah, thank you very much. So they were doing it by the law. So they have 1.36 trillion that they can spend without parliamentary approval. And this is how they spend it. Right off the bat, 200 billion goes to State House as classified expenditure. This is at the height of the pandemic. We all agree we are fighting the virus. State House takes 200 billion, and then, you know, some bit goes to foreign affairs and some bit goes to finance. And then Ministry of Health, which is at the center of the pandemic, gets 89 billion. And Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, which is also trying to make ventilators and stuff like that, masks, gets 31 billion. So Ministry of Health and Ministry of Science, Technology combined get 120 billion. The classified budget that goes to State House is 200 billion. At the height of a pandemic, and you want doctors to believe that there's no money to pay them, or that there's no money to buy lab reagents, or to buy an X-ray, or to buy PPEs. Like, are they stupid? They know the money is there. It's just not coming to them. And it's not even that they're asking that they be fair. You know, they're asking, give us what to use to make patients better, so we don't have to bear the responsibility of patients dying in our hands. So yes, there is money. There's
How much
money
budget
coming
was
into
put on
this country.
PPEs?
It's money.
How much money was put on
I can tell you that as well. In fact, last year, this is
You're selectively choosing areas of
No. There was money put on PPEs, and I can read that to you. But again, in fact,
Members, she looks for it. I remember at the height of the second wave, there were PPEs with the medical stores that were not distributed, that they had not received the distribution list. And you're like, really? I mean, this is a pandemic?
There are some, Honorable Mapendusi referred to some accumulated arrears. There are some doctors
In terms of not being paid in September.
that have not yet been paid the risk allowance that Honorable Mapendusi referred to, the COVID allowances, whatever it was called.
yes.
Up to now.
And it's not just doctors, actually. There are other health workers, there are nurses, there are lab people that are still waiting for their allowances. So this struggle is not just about
I remember at the height of the second wave, there were PPEs with the medical stores that were not distributed, that they had not received the distribution list. And you're like,
I can think about them. They are right here. In fact, this one, we went alone. Yes, we got
At the level of the president, the world encompasses many areas.
which is why I'm mentioning these other sectors. Yes, State House is not health.
Like Dr. Chris just I still remember. When we are relating with the officials from the Ministry of Health, I think during the second wave, the Ministry of Health was given slightly above 300 billion. The only concern was how, because I know money was sent for the task forces, districts and all that, and villages, and I saw the breakdown. So I know that from the 1.7 trillion, about 300 million or so went to Ministry of Health. 300 and something billion went to Ministry of Health. And of course, State House and Ministry of Internal Affairs and all that. But I know important in running the state. Exactly. So that was part of the question: why do these entities have to say that? And then the Ministry of Finance to show that the activities were actually related to COVID-19. That is okay. Where we think we are not doing well as a country, where we commit money to pay doctors, pay allowances, they should be a priority. And then several months even after the second wave, they're still there. I can actually tell you,
Here's the
I am one of those who are actually allergic to telling lies. And when I tell you something, I am I am very much involved working with our own business. And you let even I spoke, so what I'm telling you is true. When the other supplementary budget was approved by Parliament, and yes, the Minister of Health decided to ensure some payment to somebody. So somebody is supposed to be paid about 6 or 7 million. Gets about their money account. They were sending money to mobile money. I can approve that beyond reasonable doubt.
So, as an MP, do you bring this to the attention of the minister and the peers? This is the situation in my district. Do you do that so that you get to it's one thing. That kind of allegation being made our people. But it's another thing. At your level, immediately release the message, the evidence, and the evidence to the minister, so that follow this properly. The one case actually is not the case. It is many other problems.
It's not just one case, and I have to admit that yes, we need to put these medical workers on respect and honesty. They have to be paid. Yes, they have to be paid. Yes, technicalities, related issues, but we have to have. You're asking about whether I have made about a month ago or so. The minister came to Parliament, give a status on COP. I'm one of those who want to talk about even the allowances, including talking about the vaccination process and how medical workers have been facilitated. I also gave an example where some medical workers during the period of vaccination have to walk on foot several kilometers to deliver vaccination. To the kids, exactly. They have to walk on foot, and so it's important that we need to recognize and admit yes, there are challenges and these challenges have to be addressed. And we want to see commitment. So it's not just stories.
Dr. Kobusinje, I don't know whether it was earlier. You really must be able to the question. He did a good assessment of some of these challenges government has. But asked a question, the reason I think it is fair for you to respond to that.
Strike is not a solution, and it is not a workers have done. As I said before, it's come with the income, very long, strike every time. So they were saying to this point, strike every other avenue and haven't been successful. And even then, if they lost the government house, they have followed them to the letter. They gave the appropriate alerts. They gave notice that they were going to strike, and they gave room for there to change those who didn't change and strike, and they kept striking. Now saying, the days are coming closer. This is what we require. This is what we require. And all of the assurances that were being given this week, yesterday, and saying, don't you know the money is coming, so the money is coming tomorrow. Nobody was saying anything. So now, they get to the point, and then they said, we will not abandon patients, we will make sure that emergencies are covered. So they've really honored their professionalism. So it's not
Honorable Minister, I have a message from a senior consultant, a doctor, who is saying, but the PPE never reached hospitals in Mulago, we depend on donations up to now.
Is he an administrator?
This person is senior, and yes,
Senior in what?
like someone who is like your classmate in medical school.
You may not be part of the management, and you may not know whether deliveries have been delayed or not. But what I know is that we use largely a pool system, but also some extent a push system, where the health facility will be able to quantify what they need in terms of those devices and the pharmaceutical supplies, the PPEs, and then requisition from the national medical stores. And I challenge you I challenge you in the media. You go to national medical stores, which is just in Entebbe, and you go with the cameras and check whether these PPEs and the other requirements for hospital are there.
Suppose use, and they are not there.
I am also Uganda, and I go Sudden Kid, by the way, I got facilities. So I also know what's on the ground. Let's not go into that actually. The issue is we have been increasing the monies for the health sector, including what is needed in the hospital. So when he says, is he saying since COVID started, Marago has not received any PPEs? And my answer would be no. The PPEs have been provided. Yes, at the height of the wave, there was that crisis, but the situation has since improved. So I am willing, Charles, to take you on the guided tour of the national medical stores and check whether these items we talk about are there or not. And they tell you how the districts and health facilities order. Let me also comment on what the Dr. Orif is raising. The health workers also need to know how to package your message when you engage with the government. When you want to say that maybe security and defense had no role to play in COVID. When we announce a lockdown and you announce a curfew, how would you enforce that without security being in charge? And how will they work without resources? That's why I said your world starts and ends with health care. By the level of the president and the government, the world starts with health care and goes beyond and comes. So there are many elements. Even when we say we've brought infections down, this has been the work of different sectors, including health care. So
but
you must have that broad perspective.
Honorable Minister, while that point is correct, I think you have to be fair to Dr. Kobusinje. She did not criticize the budget of security. She only referred to the classified, and not that it is bad. She only talked in terms of prioritization saying that there is actually money in
She was
Uganda.
speaking English, which all of us understand. She was saying, you have misguided priority. That's what she was saying. You are putting the money in the wrong area.
Who lost their lives at the COVID frontline, or we needed to pursue a public interest litigation in courts of law.
I think that's an issue doctors have raised, and they engage the president on the very issue, and I think there's a discussion going on to see how it can be worked out.
But are there mechanisms
But you see,
for people who lose lives, like in such situations?
that same matter we raise in Parliament.
Well, there is a Workman's Compensation Act, if you want to use that. But there is a divided opinion even over that. For instance, there are people who have been asking questions. How would you know this person got it in a hospital? What if the doctor was saying there's no accommodation, he stays in the Kawempe? What if he got it from where he stays? There are all those questions, but there is that internal discussion within the government. But we feel for the families that lost their dear ones. So there is a discussion, and I think it will be worked out.
Okay.
But
Yes.
do you need, so my question was, do you need to demonstrate on the street? Because are you saying the government is insensitive, that the families need to be supported? That's an issue that you can engage with the government and have a solution. You don't have necessarily have to walk on the streets to confront
It
the
was
police.
raised from the second wave. This is now about coming to a year.
No, the second wave was in July.
July.
This is now
Okay,
December.
but it was raised from
What
that time
calendar
of
are you
the
using?
second wave.
From July to December, 20 day, yeah.
Anyway, from the second wave, it has been an issue in public domain.
I think
I've even been approached by somebody who lost a dear one in the recent bombs over the same issue. Can the government come in and support, because my husband died, left me with his small children, and we're also discussing with the government.
But there should be a mechanism in place. It shouldn't be.
Yes, but don't rush to the streets to demonstrate. That's what we provide the answer.
Parliament,
The
this is a matter you
government,
need to take up. There should be a mechanism for compensation.
You know, people rushing to the streets. Years of agitation.
the COVID, I'm saying people who died of COVID. We are as sensitive as you are. I'm saying, if you are saying government should consider the family, that's a genuine issue, which you can engage government on.
That's
But running to the streets, you don't necessarily
It is
provide
one
an
of the issues. There are many issues.
that's why we're saying the government is open to discuss on all these issues. Why do you want to rush for cameras and demonstration where the government is there and they can engage on all these issues?
Honorable,
Have you exhausted all those mechanisms of engaging government?
while that is a good question, I needed you to make a comment on the arrest of the doctors, because many people have been making a comment on it and saying that whilst perhaps they made a mistake of gathering during a COVID period and all that, but why does police have to treat the doctors when they were in their full uniform, in gown, the way they
Organize
did
that,
today?
not stepping on people's tomatoes, the usual argument.
In your role of spokesperson and national guidance minister, you need to make a comment on that.
Well, there is a law on processions and assemblies. I think it is affecting more the political actors, the police used. Because the law clearly guides you if you want to do a procession, a demonstration, how you should work with police and do it within the law, the framework of the law. Putting on the clinical code does not immunize you against what the law provides. So I think the police used that. But maybe it was a bit high-handed. You could have done it better. Because they were at
One of
Parliament.
the doctors almost fell on the demonstration.
They could have guided them, they were at the Parliament, They were not many, they were few. So maybe also police became of leaders. But if you strictly follow the law, the police was doing its work, but they could have done it better than the way it was done.
But Doctor, if we may ask, we know there is normally controversy on the right to petition, to demonstrate, and when you are not from NRM, it's more or less like this does not exist. Just the other day we saw a big lineup of students going to demonstrate against US sanctions, and so the police spokesperson on NTV was saying they cannot allow procession during COVID. What if they infect each other? So the other ones of sanctions, they couldn't infect each other.
Now examine how they work with police. That's what I'm saying. Did the doctors inform police and work with them? Because that's what the law requires. You inform police in advance and they work with the So procession is allowed as long as you work for police and follow what the law says. So I'm not very sure whether the doctors, for instance, inform the police and most likely they did it. That's why police confronted them the way they did.
Someone made a comment, and the person was quoting a police officer who didn't want to be mentioned. That the police officer was referring recently when the bomb blast went off, and many police officers were unfortunately injured, and the doctors were really running up and down trying to save their lives of policemen. And then you compare with now how the policemen were treating the doctors who helped them just a few days ago. And I saw it on social media.
The police officer are different duties of various workers. They have different roles and duties. So it's fair to compare.
I saw a police officer trying to justify their arrest that, they're trying to prevent people who start with conflict, was not putting out fast, you were shouting, that's enough. I would say you are the one going to infect these doctors because the picture is there running on.
I think
there should have been a better way that the police needed to have used in handling this. I don't justifiable. It's justifiable enough. Just get people problem pickups, and I think that's not. And also the fact that this is for them. When they were strong, they went down. Some of them sitting, very peaceful. I think we need to learn some level of restraint. It should not be the same. It should not be the same story every time when they were unruly.